Why are you involved in the housing industry, in housing at all? What is it that brought you to the point of view that that was an important part of your life? I ask that question because it's a very critical question. It's one that if you're viewing this and you're involved in housing and you are as passionate about housing as I am, that will cause us to find common ground to really pursue something that we may not be fully pursuing. So why are you involved in housing? Are you involved in housing because it's a job? That's legitimate. Are you involved in housing because it's a great way to make a lot of money? Because after all, everybody knows you can make a lot of money in real estate. Yes, that's a legitimate reason. Are you involved in housing because it is fundamental to the needs of humanity? Yes, that is a fundamental reason. I'd like to spend more time pursuing that last one because it will validate the other reasons we talked about. If we can come to terms and recognize how important housing is to the human endeavor that we are all part of, we will come to really accept the importance of our responsibility, and we will pursue it with a lot different focus. There is a substantial amount of evidence that I am going to be sharing with you over time, and I hope that you tune in and do that. And in fact, I will probably do a video series just on the fundamentals of housing as revealed through the insights of a psychologist called Maslow. But fundamental to his observations is that we as human beings depend on housing, or the sense of security that comes on from the value of delivering and receiving a quality of life through housing, in order to build the foundation we need to truly self-actualize our lives. All of us, everybody who's listening to this or watching this or participating in this, will come back to recognize that the real thing that motivates you is that you hope to be self-actualized. You hope to be something greater than what you are. You have an ambition in life and a calling in life that is driving you to something greater, and I encourage you to embrace that with fullness and enthusiasm. But central to that, and in fact, in order to generate the support for that you need, we come to focus on the need for a quality of life through housing. Let me share a story with you. I currently am living in this location because it is an apartment. I liquidated a home in order to move into this apartment because my wife was suffering with a terminal illness, and I'll talk more about my beautiful bride in the future. But the fact was, we needed to be placing her in a safer place and put her into an environment where her needs could be met more effectively and I could be her caregiver. And we chose to do that. I chose to do that. I admit that. Because I thought I could do that more effectively in an apartment, and this apartment. And I was not mistaken in that. It was easier. There was less room. It was easier for me to serve her needs until it got to a point where I could no longer serve her needs. The tragedy of this is housing should be more than the four walls, the ceiling, and the floor that I happen to share with whatever number of other people that live around me. It's much more than that. It is a human fundamental need. And there is a human need to experience more from housing than just be given a safe roof over our heads. We need to be invited into relationship through housing. So the story I need to tell you is about the point in the journey of being in this location that I was confronted with the reality that my wife's life was coming to an end, and I was by her side as she was living the last few days of her life. And that happened to take place at the beginning of a month. And of course, if you are in the multifamily space, and I lived and worked in the multifamily space, I owned a home, I lived in apartments. We all may be common in that regard, and more of us live in a multifamily space. We know that at the beginning of every month is our duty to pay our rent in order to enjoy the value of living in that multifamily space. Unfortunately, the management company that manages the apartment that I live in is one of the largest in the world, and they made the decision at that particular time, and this was a year ago, that they would remove the drop box outside of their offices so that I could drop off a check for my rent. But I was committed to being at my wife's side, and I was there from before the sun came up till after the sun came down every night for several days in a row. And it was the beginning of the month, and it was time for me to pay my rent. And I called the office and said, I cannot get to a computer to do it online. I cannot drop off a check at your office because you no longer have a drop box. Will you forgive me if I'm unable to get you the rent in a timely fashion this month? And here's why. And I explained my circumstances. And in response to that, they gave me a compassionate response. We understand. Thank you for calling. During the course of the next few days, my wife passed away. And it was then and remains to this day one of the most miserable things that has happened to me in my life. And when it came time to deliver my rent payment, I discovered that attached to my rent obligation was an $85 charge for paying my rent late, in spite of the fact that I reported the reason, in spite of the fact that I made every effort to explain my circumstances, in spite of the fact that they were on notice as my intent was to pay it on time, but my circumstances would prevent paying it on time. They felt obligated to charge me the $85 because that's the rule. So if housing is about the rules and it's not about the people, we need to ask ourselves, why are we involved in housing? Why are you involved in housing? Is your motivation to be involved in housing simply to be in a place where you can make a lot of money and ignore the humanity of the people you are serving? I am hoping that over the course of time together, we can figure out a way to embrace a wonderful, powerful understanding of the power of and. We can make a lot of money in housing if that's what motivates you, and we can make the world a better place. And so my objective in these communications with you is for you and I to begin this dialogue, for you to embrace this opportunity to talk with me, to relate to me, to share with me what your motivations are, and allow me to open up our hearts and our minds to a more effective way to do this. Please follow me. Please click on the like button for this video. Please like me in Facebook or wherever you wish to see me in social media. Most importantly, please give me some feedback about how I might serve you better so that we collectively may serve others better and answer the question, why are you involved in housing? Thank you for your passion.